conflicts, 2 decades of instability and interference have reached a tipping point in Iraq. On Monday, their capital, Baghdad, turned into a war zone. This is what it looked like. What led to these violent clashes? A surprise announcement by this man. His name is Muqtada al-Sadr. He's a powerful Shia cleric in Iraq. Sadr's political bloc was the largest in Iraq's parliament. They had 73 seats but no majority. So in the month of June, his lawmakers resigned. They could not cobble up a coalition, so they hit the streets. But on Monday, Sadr dropped a surprise. He announced his complete withdrawal from politics. And the effect was immediate. Thousands of his supporters flooded the streets of Baghdad. They breached the presidential palace. They took over the private pool, very similar to what happened in Sri Lanka last month. But there was one key difference, and that was weapons. Iraq is home to dozens of armed Shia militias. Some of them are supported by Iran, some of them are supported by al-Sadr himself. Now, Sadr is a hardcore Iraqi nationalist. He opposes both Western and Iranian influence. So naturally, the militias clashed. Most of the violence was reported near the Green Zone. The Green Zone is a 10-kilometer area in central Baghdad. It houses important buildings like the presidential palace, the US embassy, the prime minister's office. On Monday, it turned into a war zone, the Green Zone. You could hear the rattle of automatic gunfire, loud bangs from handheld rockets and grenades. By Tuesday morning, 30 people had been killed. All of them were supporters of Muqtada al-Sadr. But who killed them? Maybe Iraqi armed forces or Iran-backed militias. In the chaos of yesterday, it's really hard to say. The army had announced a nationwide curfew to control the protest, but it was squarely ignored. Protesters kept pouring onto the streets. Neighboring Iran closed their borders with Iraq. Multiple carriers suspended flights to Baghdad. The fear was it would be a full-blown civil war. By Tuesday noon, Sadr took to the airwaves again. He gave his supporters 60 minutes to withdraw.
I still believe that the party is disciplined and obedient. That's why, if within 60 minutes you don't withdraw from the Green Zone, even from the sit-in outside Parliament, then I will disavow you along with my party.
60 minutes is what he gave them, and guess what? It worked. Within minutes, his supporters vacated the Green Zone. The Iraqi army lifted the nationwide curfew. It makes you wonder, was this the plan all along? A show of force, a demonstration of his public support? Well, if it was, the plan worked. Let me show you a tweet by Mustafa al-Khadimi. He is the interim Prime Minister of Iraq, and this is what he wrote. Muqtada al-Sadr's call to stop violence is the epitome of patriotism and respect to the sanctity of Iraqi blood. You see what I mean? Monday's events have confirmed who is the real sheriff in town, who controls the streets of Baghdad. It is Muqtada al-Sadr. And that gives him a lot of leverage in the future. He could re-enter politics. He could take on an advisory/religious role, and he could pull the strings from behind. Which is why it's important to understand what his ideology is. What does Muqtada al-Sadr stand for? He hails from a very powerful clerical family. Both his father and father-in-law are ayatollahs, but his support base is quite the opposite. Most of his loyalists belong to the poorest sections of society. Historically, they were shut out of politics, but under Muqtada al-Sadr, they have a chance. He gained popularity after the US invasion in 2003. He led movements against both American and Iraqi government forces. His objective? To create an Islamic democracy in Iraq. Sadr despises Iranian influence in Iraqi politics. He wants to keep the Iran-backed faction out of power. In fact, in 2017, he met the crown princes of Saudi Arabia and the UAE. It's safe to say we will hear a lot about this man. A lot more in the weeks and months ahead. Retirement or not, Muqtada al-Sadr is likely to dominate Iraqi affairs in the future. Even India will be watching the developments closely. After all, Iraq is the leading seller of crude oil to India. Around 17% of total imports come from Iraq. If the political crisis worsens, that trade could be affected. But if Muqtada al-Sadr has his way, he could bring some much-needed stability to Iraq. What will that stability look like? As they say, only time will tell. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.